Well, hello and welcome to Choral Classics, 20 minutes of sublime music performed by our choral scholars under the direction of Olivia Tait, our conducting fellow, and accompanied by Phoebe Chow, our organ scholar. The theme for our music and readings this week is Christ the King, in recognition of the feast that we celebrate at the end of the Church's year, when we remind ourselves on our dependence on divine authority. Someone who witnessed the futility of earthly power at first hand, having served in World War I, was the composer of our first piece, Sir George Dyson. Let All the World in Every Corner Sing was written shortly after the Feast of Christ the King was established, in the aftermath of the Great War and the growing threat of dictatorships rising in Europe. The music, a setting of a poem by George Herbert, is a hymn of praise to the enduring authority as Christ is King of the whole world. A king who provides the model for our own faithful service, and by whose death and resurrection we are promised to enter into glory, the message of our next piece of music by Henry Purcell, one of the earliest of his anthems that still survives, composed in 1679, O God, the King of Glory. The Makers is a poem by Dorothy Sayers, used as a dedication to the script for her radio play, The Man Born to be King, about the life of Christ, first broadcast in 1941. In the poem, an architect, a craftsman, and a stone enter into dialogue, through which they come to realize that true happiness is not to be found through lauding their own power over one another, but by serving each other, following the example of Christ, our servant king. The Makers by Dorothy Sayers. The architect stood forth and said, I am the master of the art. I have a thought within my head. I have a dream within my heart. Come now, good craftsman, ply your trade with tool and stone obediently. Behold the plan that I have made. I am the master. Serve you me. The craftsman answered, Sir, I will, yet look to it that this your draught be of a sort to serve my skill. You are not master of the craft. It is by me the towers grow tall. I lay the course, I shape and hew. You make a little inky scrawl, and that is all that you can do. Account me then the master man, laying my rigid rule upon the plan, and that which serves the plan, the uncomplaining, helpless stone. The stone made answer, "Masters mine, know this, that I can bless or damn the thing that both of you design by being the very thing I am. For I am granite and not gold, for I am marble and not clay. You may not hammer me nor mold, I am the master of the way. Yet once that mastery bestowed, then I will suffer patiently the cleaving steel, the crushing load that make a Calvary of me. And you may carve me with your hand to arch and buttress, roof and wall, until the dream rise up and stand. Serve but the stone serves all. Let each do well what each knows best, nothing refuse and nothing shirk, since none is master of the rest, but all are servants of the work. The work no master may subject, save he to whom the whole is known, being himself the architect, the craftsman, and the cornerstone. Then when the greatest and the least have finished all their laboring, and sit together at the feast, you shall behold a wonder thing. The maker of the men that make will stoop between the cherubim, the towel and the basin take, and serve the servants who serve him. The architect and craftsman both agreed the stone had spoken well, bound them to service by an oath, and each to his own labor fell. Recognition that earthly power is dependent on divine authority is the basis for our next piece of music. Christus Vincit by Scottish composer James MacMillan sets to music the opening words of the text of a liturgy known as the Royal Acclamations, which was in common use in the Middle Ages, and through which the earthly powers of Pope, King, Queen, and Bishop would be acclaimed and placed under the protection of divine authority. Christ conquers, Christ is King, Christ is Lord of all. one of the many inspiring people who've devoted their lives to the service of Christ the King, is the acclaimed mystic and polymath Hildegard of Bingen, who described her life as a feather on the breath of God. I think how we all probably feel after that beautiful music. One of her surviving letters is addressed to King Henry II and dates from 1154, before the controversy that culminated in the brutal murder of Thomas à Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury. In her letter to King Henry, Hildegard counsels the king to be a just ruler, to turn away from all that might tempt him from humble acts of service, to remember always the truth about the source of his power and authority, where his true kinship lies. From Hildegard Abbot at Rupertsberg to Henry, King of England, greetings. When a certain man holds a high office over other men, the Lord commands him, "Yours are the gifts of giving. It is by ruling and defending, protecting and providing, that you may reach heaven." But then a bird, black as pitch, will come to you from the north, and it will say, "You can do whatever you want. So do this and do that. Make this excuse and that excuse, for it does not profit you to have regard to justice. For if you always consult justice, you are not the master. Rather, you've been reduced to a mere slave." It's imperative that you do not listen to the thief who so counsels you, who is like the one who in the first age stripped humanity of its great glory, when from dust humankind was made in a beautiful form, and when it received that vital spark of life. Rather, you must pay your attention to your Father the Creator, especially since your mind is well-intentioned, and thus you will willingly do good, unless you are overcome by the squalid habits of those around you, and become estranged from him in the course of time. Dear Son of God, you must flee this environment and call on your Father with all your might, as he gladly reaches out his hand to help you. Thus, may you live forever and dwell in eternal happiness. Christ the King marks the end of the Church's year and the end of this season of Choral Classics. Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our wonderful musicians for the fantastic music over the past 10 weeks. But don't worry, we'll be back to do it all again in January, so do join us then. Do stay with us for our choral Eucharist, which starts in about 10 minutes' time, and make a note of our services taking place over Advent and Christmas. Please, if you can, help us maintain our music ministry by donating generously, either by cash or contactless at the doors, at the church doors, or online. If you're watching us online, there's a donate button on the website. The triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, riding not on horseback as an armed conqueror, but in humility on the back of a donkey, is one of the great symbols of Christ the King of Peace. As we listen to our final piece of music, Ride On, King Jesus, by acclaimed composer Moses Hogan, well known for his settings of spirituals, it's impossible, I think, not to get caught up in the liberating fervor of that scene. Enjoy.